And I want to say a really, really warm welcome from Almeria. I'm very lucky to be sitting in a classroom at the University of Almeria in this huge area with not one single soul, but a lot of parrots. So lots of conversations going on. I don't even know if you can hear that, but they're very chatty. So this is our 20, what number was it? 26th Open Dialogue Conference. So it's 26 years. And Jaco was telling me yesterday, he's been to every single one of them. I haven't even managed to do that with the Hearing Voices thing. So pretty impressive. We are here to, talk, share the ideas of quality right from WHO. Something that Michelle has been absolutely the main actor, along with Natalie Drew. She's been creating this over the last many years, and you will be talking about that a bit, Michelle. We were thinking that we will talk amongst ourselves, the three of us, for about 15-20 minutes, and then we'd like to just open up and invite you to join the conversation. So we hope that's going to be of interest for you all. So, but ultimately, just sort of as a title of the quality rights, the ultimate goal has been with the quality rights, is to change mindsets and practices both in a sustainable, but also in a human rights orientated way, and has been looking at what practices are found throughout, in the world that actually lives up to the CRPD, the human rights. And this Michelle will be able to explain a little bit more. I've had the great pleasure. I met you, Michelle, the first time in India. Where we got on like a house on fire, and that started our connection. So, and it's been a huge pleasure and honor to be a part of a small part of this journey. So yeah, so very, very exciting. Anyway, I thought I'd just ask you, Andrea, to perhaps explain a little bit. Oh, wait a minute, enable somebody. Yes, I think there's something about that. Live transcript. Yes. Sorry, I get distracted when I get things popping up asking me questions. I was going to ask you, Andrea, if you could perhaps would like to share a little bit about your story with WHO and quality rights, and and who you are, of course. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, I forgot to mention I'm Olga. Yeah, people. Yeah, yeah. So.
Yeah, I've been to this international open dialogue meetings, some of them, and I really like these spaces for dialogue, and I hope this will work online anyway. Yes, and WHO, to be honest, I was not very much familiar with WHO and mental health and so on. But then I watched the June 10th starting event for the guidance for community mental health. And that was so amazing to me. Also, the start, we had Olga sharing 5 minutes of her story, very powerful. Then there was this poem by Erin May Kelly, which was like, you had the Olga story, everybody's story, and then there was Michelle just facts about that was my impression, the facts about the guidance. And I was, to be honest, I was really crying, because this was not the Mad in America, open dialogue, hearing voices, whatsoever sub-bubble where you have a different mindset. That was really 7,000 people watching from all over the world. And for me, this was really like WHO is supporting this mindset. And that really got me into learning more and trying to find out how we can use this big supporter in the background to make more change in whatever necessary and helpful places.
Yeah. Yes, for me, I really resonate with what you're saying, and also because I think WHO is such a huge organization that is such an influence throughout the world. So when it creates this thing and steps into psychiatry in the way it's done through quality rights, it's really a very, very powerful statement. So anyway, I'd like to pass it on to you, Michelle. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about it. I'm not sure that everyone knows about quality rights, but just perhaps what you'd like to share, you know, what's meant for you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Olga. And I really appreciate being invited to this session. You know, Andrea, what you just said, you know, about how emotional that experience was, and in being part of that launch, and, you know, hearing everyone speak and having WHO launch this new guidance on community mental health services with rights at its center. That was a big moment, not just for you, but for so many people. I heard the same story. You know, I would hear people coming directly to me, and to also, I heard it via other colleagues, you know, that people were saying, oh, you know, it was such an emotional experience that they were really moved and were brought to tears.
Claudia, I'm listening to Olga. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I should have answered you.
Sorry, Mary, can you switch your microphone off? I don't know if I can, maybe.
So, yeah, so a lot of people were brought to tears, and they were saying, you know, this is just amazing that WHO is launching guidance like this, but it's taken too long as well, you know, that this guide, they're really grateful that WHO has finally done it, but it's, you know, really been a long time in coming. Anyway, so it's here. There is a new approach, which is coming out from WHO, and I have been very fortunate to be part of and also have been leading. And it's just nice now. I feel much more acceptance with this quality rights approach in the world. It doesn't mean that the battle is won, because there's so much more to do. It really is just the start of a change in the world, but I think it is resonating with many more people and many more groups, but it is the start, and we have to just keep going and reaching more and more people. So with that, let me just say, you know, for people who may not know what quality rights is, just a little bit more about quality rights. And Olga introduced it at the beginning by saying it's WHO's initiative to promote rights, a human rights-based approach in mental health. So that means it's person-centered. So it's really taking people where they are and working with people to develop treatment or support approaches which are based on their needs, their wishes, what they think is going to be useful for them. It's grounded in human rights, in that it's respecting the international human rights standards set by the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. So it's about respecting fully people's legal capacity. So basically respecting what they say and what they want It's about eliminating coercion in the mental health services, in the community. It's about promoting participation, nothing about us without us. And so really respecting all the international human rights standards, which are obligations for countries to respect. But with quality rights, we're showing countries and we're providing guidance on how countries can implement these standards, because countries have had systems in place which are diametrically opposed, in conflict with these human rights standards, and they're a little bit lost in how to put them into practice. So quality rights is about showing countries how we can build a system and services and supports that are respecting rights, and also trying to empower a whole movement of different stakeholders to move in that direction. I'll stop there because I see Olga nodding a lot, saying it's time for me to.
I was enthusiastic.
Okay.
No, I wasn't at all. I wanted to, since now I would be interested, because you've also created this whole online educational system, and perhaps you could also mention a bit about that and some of the countries that have found it super helpful.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. So through the Quality Rights Initiative, we've developed different resources. And so the one that Andrea mentioned that was launched last year was the guidance on community mental health services that are person-centered and grounded in the human rights-based approach. So that guidance is presenting a whole range of different services. So it's crisis services, outreach services, supported living services, hospital-based services, community mental health services, peer support services, and networks of services. And this guidance is presenting good practice examples from each of these different categories, and it's showing that each of these services are respecting the main rights: no coercion, full respect of legal capacity, participation, recovery approach. So it's showing that we do have good practice services that meet all these criteria. They're actually, we shouldn't cut down on costs, but they actually are cheaper to run than your traditional mainstream services, and are more effective. And so basically these services, which are often at the sidelines of mental health systems, should actually be the core of the mental health systems and services. And if they can become the core, we can completely transform our mental health system into a system that people want to use, and that are going to get benefit from, instead of trying to run away from the system. And anyway, so that is one set of guidance.
Can I interrupt just briefly? And maybe people here are familiar, but open dialogue is one of the services that are a good practice example in the guidance.
Mia was talking about that yesterday.
Yeah,
that's right. So open dialogue is a good practice service that was highlighted, and hearing voices was also highlighted as a good practice service as well. So, and there are many other just amazing services. So I will put a link eventually in the chat to the flyer, which lists all the different resources that we've developed, and some of the ones that are in development as well. But it's worthwhile to have a look at that guidance and recognize this is something that's been put out by WHO, so you can really go with it and advocate with all the different groups you interrelate with. But it's just, to look at these services, to hear about them, to read them, it's just so encouraging for the future. But more and more people need to know about them, because they're still, sidelined. They're not part of the mainstream, so they need to become. And anyway, I'll just jump on what Olga said about the training that we've developed. as well. We've developed, if we're going to influence what happens in the mental health sector, we need to change the attitudes and the practices and the mindsets of whole communities, not just a small group of mental health professionals who are advocating for change. We need to change the hearts and the minds of, the community at large, of all the health workforce, whether it's mental health professionals or, general health professionals and workers, nurses, doctors, psychologists, social workers. We need to change. We need to have people with lived experience of having a mental health condition, also knowledgeable about human rights and what it means to implement a human rights approach, police, judiciary, policymakers. So basically, we developed capacity building materials on, mental health, covering mental health, human rights, recovery approach, and what that means in practice. And so we have a lot of face-to-face capacity building materials that can be used for running workshops. But we've also developed an e-training platform that is free, that is translated in 12 different languages, that is available for use for anyone around the world, whether you lived experience, you're a professional, you're a police officer, you're a secondary school student, you're a college student, you're a policymaker. So basically the idea is the more people that we can get to do the e-training, the more likely we can transform mindsets towards human rights, recovery approach, person-centered approach, and mental health. And the more likely you are to have the support we need to completely change the system, to change the policies, the laws, the services, the individual practices. And this is something we can do because, we have evaluated this e-training program and we have shown, and there are papers which are going to be submitted for publication, an overall average 40% change, improvement in attitudes towards human rights-based approach and reducing stigma and discrimination. So we measured the change before and after the training, and it's on average 40% change. That's huge. And on many of the individual items of the evaluation, so looking at respect for legal capacity, ending coercion, we got 50% improvement or alignment with human rights attitudes. So if we're getting that massive change, if we can reach millions of people with this e-training and they complete the e-training, we can fundamentally change attitudes in society. But we need to do that in all countries, low, middle, and high income countries. And then we have the basis for much more massive change. And you cannot do that with small, face-to-face training, because you need societal mindset change. You need to change the whole frame around mental health. And so this is one thing that we can do. And I can put the link to that e-training in the chat. And I would encourage everyone here to do the e-training and spread it through your networks. I don't know if someone already in this group has done the e-training who can say a few things about it. I'm not sure. It would be interesting to know. Okay, well,
Thank you. And I was just thinking before we just open it up to the rest of you, if you have any thoughts, Andrea, because I was certainly, I can find myself and get caught up in the enthusiasm of Michelle, and I'm also again very struck by the idea of education. We continue, at least I can see in my country, the idea of churning out traditional teaching, the same traditional manner of viewing people in mental health. It's like, you're constantly behind trying to get people to unlearn something. And also my own personal experience, I was thinking about that when I did the open dialogue. and how much that helped that we were people in mental health and users and survivors of psychiatry together, how that was really made changes. But I don't know, I was finding, going back in time, I was getting pictures and things. I don't know if you, your thoughts.
I don't know. I don't know whether the two of you would even agree, but my impression really is that I have a feeling WHO has done its job. Now it's up to us.
Interesting.
I mean, you provided or are still continuing to provide these things, but to bring it down to the bases in our countries, in our cities, in the institutions whatsoever, we can use it, but we have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think WHO's job is over. There's a lot more we need to do to bring it to countries, because, you know, one thing is developing the materials and the tools, and the other thing is actually having everyone in country, or at least all the policymakers in countries know about it. And it's interesting that, you know, you're in this field, all right, and you've been working in mental health and trying to promote change for a long time. But you'd only heard about quality rights last year, you know, when we launched the community mental health service guidance, but we'd been working at it for years before. So so it's quite incredible, all the effort that needs to go out there so that people know about it. And that's I mean, it is a job for developing the materials, but actually getting it out there, we've got so much more work to do with that. And yeah, that's going, it will depend on all of you here promoting it with a loud voice, advocating for sure in your countries. And we need to continue to do that as well. And, you know, the gap even between, you know, what we're saying at WHO at international level and what is happening on the ground in countries, that there is a huge gap. There is a huge gap. We've got to bridge that gap. But yeah, so everyone has to be involved. Everyone has to make themselves knowledgeable about all the tools and the international human rights standards, and have to promote it, and have to work extremely hard at doing that. You know, it's hard work.
Well, what do you say?
You have a hand.
Yes, I was thinking that. Can we open it up to you guys and your thoughts on what you've heard, your ideas, reflections, whatever. And I can see you, Michelle, as well. Another Michelle would like to. So perhaps if you can, welcome.